a recent series I started of just kind of sharing my struggles, past and present, with guitar, and more specifically jazz guitar. So this is just about every week. I try to put out a subject that I always struggled with and probably still struggling with a little bit, and just my way of thinking of things and a few things that helped me along the way to either conceptualize or kind of wiggle my way around it to make sense of it in my head, my ear, and on the guitar itself. So today should be a brief introduction to how I think about the tritone substitution. The tritone substitution is something very common in jazz. You probably all, I guess probably most people who click on this video probably know about it more than I do, but it's something that comes up a lot in jazz, and it's a cool sound, it's a cool tool to use. So I just want to share some thoughts, how I learned it and how I think about it now. That's my pick. In general, I want to start with the three things, the three ways we very often get taught this kind of music, at least in 2019, or when I started in 2012 or whatever, in college and before. And that's not the same for everybody, that's just my experience and the experience I know friends went through. I started listening to jazz very late. The first record I ever listened to really intently was The Kind of Blue, and I was already in college, so I'm quite late to the thing. So for me, jazz education for most of the time started with, number one, the theory. So I was like in the first semester theory class, and someone would put out these books. Like I have one of them, I should have prepared that. One of those books, like you get something like this, which is like a German book. It's the New Jazz Harmony School from Frank Sikora. It's an amazing book. It's like the equivalent to what you have in the Berkeley Press in the States. So you have a book like that, or like your textbook in college, and they say like, okay, first semester, first class, tritone substitution. It's like a substitution to a dominant and a 2-5-1, and it's a tritone lower, and it's a dominant chord, but you played with the sharp 11, and it's a scale, blah, 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 and you write all of that down. And I was very excited about that, and I still am sometimes about theory. But I remember in college I was really like, it was like this new world, all these things I didn't know, because I really was quite late to the party. And I thought if I write them down and learn them really well, it makes me a better musician, which it not necessarily does. It's certainly good to know a few things. But so the order for me was always theory. Then I would learn the theory in terms of shape of a guitar. Like I would learn probably like the chord, like a sharp 11 dominant chord. Like if I had like a 2-5-1, then like G-7, G-flat 7, sharp 11, F major. I would learn that, and then I would learn the scale for this. And resolve it there. So it was the shape next, and only then, after years of kind of playing it, I got the sound into my ear. And I think that's very common for many jazz musicians in my generation. And I think it's probably the opposite way of how it's been done back in the day. Like every great teacher I had kind of advises you to do it reversed. Ideally, first get it into your ear, the sound, then worry about the shape or how you play it on the guitar, and then you can think about it. What's the sharp 11? Where is that scale coming from? What can I do with it otherwise? So kind of like ear shape theory, or ear theory shape, but not theory, shape, and ear last. That's probably the worst way to learn. That's how I learned. I often had to learn things backwards again later on. So today is kind of one of those backwards learning experience for me, how I thought about it. So the first thing, what is a tritone substitution? If you have a normal, I should keep it there. I have a second angle now, and it's really confusing the hell out of me. So bear with me. I hope it's all showing on this one here. If you have a 2-5-1, let's say in F major, we have a G-7 chord, a C7 chord, an F major chord. You probably all know those chords, so I try to keep it fairly simple with the voicings as well. The C7 chord is the point of interest here, because we want to substitute this one. So what we do is we keep the third and the seventh of those two notes, which kind of resolve with their semitones to like the F and the A in this case, for the one. But we keep those two kind of harmony notes, if you want so, and change the root a tritone down, so we get this G flat chord. So on the guitar that's super handy, we have to wiggle our fingers a little bit, but we keep two notes, we change one. The cool thing about that is, and that's again goes straight to your ear, it's a very different sound than the moving of fifths or fourths that we usually have in a 2-5, where we have like boom, boom, boom. Instead, now we get boom. That kind of bass movement that has a very different drive to it. When you then learn about that chord, you quickly learn the scale about it. Technically it's a dominant chord, so any Mixolydian scale kind of works. If you think purely Mixolydian, that wouldn't be wrong in that case. So if you would play G flat Mixolydian, what kind of is the more common one, what people started doing is playing the sharp 11 in that scale. Do it instead of the normal 11, which would be C flat, would be, it keeps it a bit closer to the key. If you would go with the C flat, you kind of closer to the key where this might go. A G flat Mixolydian would maybe go to like a C flat major tonality, but we want to keep the sharp 11 because it's closer to the C7 and therefore closer to our resolution point F. Okay, that's the idea of this scale. So when I learned this, I right away like learned the chord, and then I learned the scale, and I was also lazy, so I did that thing where I didn't really learn lots of different positions with the scale, but I looked, where is this scale coming from? It comes from melodic minor, the 4th degree of a melodic minor scale. So in this case it would be D flat melodic minor, so if you know that D flat melodic minor from your normal practice, you would know the G flat Mixolydian sharp 11 scale right away. And then I played the shit out of it, like a heavy 2/5 I would go. And those phrases are kind of intentionally bad. It's great to say that, but I kind of forgot what it was about. That the chromatic pull to the root, what your ear tells you, what makes this function kind of work. I completely kind of ignored it because I was in scale land. I was like in thinking melodic minor, Mixolydian sharp 11, all these notes, tried to fit it all in as much of the scale as I could. And I didn't have great phrases in the scale either. Like it was just very, and I played like that for a long time. Till I probably transcribed some stuff. Like we have a Peter Bernstein example. I want to show in a second, which he does a really great job of doing what I'm going to show you here in a second. It's kind of like simplifying things. So before you think even sharp 11 chord, Mixolydian sharp 11 and melodic minor or anything like that, what I like to think is triads. So think of this whole thing, G minor, G flat and F, just in triads. I think of a G minor triad here, and then G flat to F. So the cool thing about this, on the guitar, do it one more time, G minor, G flat, and F. The great thing about this with the guitar is that we kind of immediately see, as in terms of the shape and our fingerings, G flat is the same thing as F. Granted, one is a major 7 chord, one is a dominant 7 chord, but they're, in terms of the underlying triad, they're the same thing. So that can help you a lot in your phrasing. So I try to find lines just with that, like and those things already, it's not the most out there or the most sophisticated things, but they make sense in the phrasing because I can connect the two things. And I also can play a rhythmic phrase or anything on that G flat triad and just always resolve it one fret, a semitone down, and wherever I land there, it's gonna be on the F major. So the resolution is there, and if you have like a triads are very strong as phrasing materials anyway because they're just a very strong sound. So you get that triad sound and you get immediately an easier resolution right there visually, which is makes your phrasing just really strong and really obvious. That's not what we always want, but especially if you're like me struggling with getting that sound anyhow, that's a really good way of thinking of it. You also don't have to play the G minor triad. You can obviously play the normal G minor 7 like full arpeggio or scale. You can go something like this, or all of that kind of stuff, like G minor to the G flat. Then if you're comfortable with that, you can obviously add the sharp 11, which is really easy in the triad because it's just a semitone below the fifth. So if you have this phrase here, this kind of G flat triad, your sharp 11 is here or here, which again is like already in the half tonality, it's the C. So you can go, and suddenly you have the whole sound, the sharp 11 sound. All of this doesn't mean that you don't have to play that scale at all, like the whole scale. That can be, if you have good phrasing and that, good ideas, that's still super valid. This just means that it's another way of thinking of it, which is a bit closer for me to my ear, what's actually happening. This chromatic movement from G flat to F is really important. And with this kind of approach, I kind of clearly get that into the sound and into my playing, and it helps me a lot. The Peter Bernstein example I played right here. This is from a tune called Cupcake, and Cupcake is in C. So what he did there was like he comes from C, and then he has kind of a 2-5 into A flat. And then here the G7, that's the one that brings it back to C he plays. So in the key of C, oh, I should move this like this. He literally plays like a D flat triad, like F, third of D flat, D flat root, A flat fifth, and then he does exactly that. Chromatic resolution 1 down to the fifth of C major. So I think this way really helped, this way of thinking about it, the obvious way that the tritone substitution is exactly a semitone above the resolution point, like your 1 chord. I kind of forgot that in the midst of like scales and tensions and blah blah blah, and kind of going back to that idea while doing really simple stuff with triads, resolving it down, listening to other players like Peter Bernstein, like he did it. That helped me immensely, and I hope it can help you. Again, it's not the hippest thing in the world. It's a very simple thing, and it has to do with your ear and with your phrasing and the direction you're playing. I hope that helped you. I hope you stay around for more content coming soon. Probably not over Christmas, but definitely in the new year. Stay tuned for that. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.